What's good? So, welcome to episode number one on a series that's all geared towards surviving the rat race. Okay, how do we go to work and make the best of what we've got? And first and foremost, I think that it's really important to understand that it's not fun when you feel like you're playing catch up, when you feel like all you're doing is going to work, coming home, trying to find an hour or two in the evening to have some time to yourself. It doesn't feel like enough. And this series is based directly towards giving you some insights that I've learned through a lot of experience in not doing it well, and messing up and having to start from scratch and being stuck in not very good situations for quite a while. How to basically just make the experience of going to work coming back more than that. I think most people aren't really lazy. They're just overwhelmed, and they aren't aware of what you can do in order to make the the life experience, going to work a little bit easier. So a lot of people are very exhausted and firefighting. They're just constantly trying to put out problems and deal with things as they crop up rather than being a little bit more organized. And I feel like it can get very stressful. It's very fatiguing. You don't feel like you're making any progress anywhere, so you feel very stuck, and nobody wants to be stuck in a loop. And I think that's where chaos comes in. You feel like your life's very chaotic, and you don't feel very stable, and it's like you've got no space, you've got no buffer, you have no time. And I think that's ultimately one of the biggest things, is taking a step back from whatever's going on, having a look at what you can potentially tweak, having an idea of how the tweaks will benefit you, and then starting off nice and small, and then building a little bit of momentum up as we go through. So I think, taking a step back out of the rat race for a minute and understanding that it's, gonna work is a very big part of our lives. I've got a full-time job. I work 40 hours a week. But I think when that's the only thing you do, your life can feel a bit shit, can feel a bit boring. So, if you're working long hours, if you're not eating, fantastic food, or you're just not being organized with food, you're not having great sleep, you don't have any time, like, for yourself, like some people go to the gym, some people go for walks, some people play instruments, some people take really long showers or go to the sauna. You can do art, you can read. I think making sure that there is something else in your week apart from just home and work is really, really important. And we're going to cover all of this kind of stuff as we go through the series. And the reason why I wanted to make a series is because I think there's a lot of different elements that go into this when you're looking at, improving yourself, whether it's your mindset, your emotional health, your physical health, your sleep, your social side, but with a very big understanding that we all have to go to work. We all have a job, and we can't spend 7 hours a day doing all of the stuff to make us feel all amazing. It's figuring out where the systems can go, fit those systems around life and work, so that we show up as a better version of ourselves, get a promotion, work more hours, just take a little bit of space to maybe think about if you're in the right job. Like, are you in a transition period where you want to be in a different career than the one that you're in now, or do you want to move companies, or do you want to move sideways and go into a different side of the business? All of that stuff takes energy, it takes time, it takes planning, it takes growth. And when you're stuck in a loop, in a cycle, you feel very overwhelmed. There's no structure. You don't feel like you've got any spare time or space to make those improvements. And even if you did, you don't necessarily have an idea of how those improvements can be made. So that's what this series is all about. It's about inviting you and giving you examples and insights from things that I've done, things that I've learned, things that I've tried that have allowed me to do that. And basically give you the formula of what I've done, and then how to maybe use those principles in ways that suit you in order to work towards what you're wanting to work towards. Um, and understanding that realistically it all starts with you. You know, you have got responsibility over yourself. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do, but also not be overwhelmed by the fact that you've got to do it all. You know, it's the same thing but just worded in a different way. So you know, when we are reacting to stuff, it's just not very good because you're overwhelmed. And what we need to do is we need to figure out which specific parts we're struggling with, what system or what can I do to create a system so that then that part of my life doesn't become this stressful, overwhelming thing that I'm losing energy inside of. It becomes something that's organized, I've planned in advance, I've figured out when I'm going to do this or how I'm going to make time for that, and then it becomes a seamless part of your week that's organized in advance. And so a really easy one for something like this would be food, because most people when they go to work, they go to the shop and they buy something on their dinner. And there's a multiple different things into that as to why that's not optimal and ideal. I think we all can understand, you know, it costs more, you're having to decide on what you want, which, you know, decision fatigue, you might not have time to go to the shop, so then you're going without food. The choices in the shop aren't always fantastic, so you're very limited to the types of stuff that you can eat. And all of that type of thing. That's just that's one thing as an example as to where that could be making work a little bit more difficult. And the system to that would be, you know, be organized and make some food the night before or meal prep for a few days. Because again, it's going to be cheaper. You don't have to think about it. It's going to be more convenient time wise, and you can have what you want. So that's just one example of how we're going to start to break down and figure out where the problems are. So, yeah, we've gone through that. So I think I've got some notes here so I don't just blabber on. Yeah, so another couple of examples of that, just to give you an outline, is if you feel like you're very overwhelmed and all you're doing is going to work and coming home, then it might be a good idea to start and organize some downtime. Like actually structuring 20 minutes a day or 3 hours on one of your days off, or, you know, 2 1 hour sessions a week of just doing something which gives you happiness, which you enjoy. It's something fun. It's connecting with friends. It's going for a hike. It's, you know, going swimming. It's, I don't know, talking to your fucking desk planner. You know, whatever it is that gives you happiness, if you're not structuring time in for that, your life won't be as good. And then when you do go to work, you're a little bit more resentful. Your energy's not quite as good. Your mood's a little bit lower. And then again, you don't have that spare energy to move on, to move up, to move sideways, to work on a side project, you know, just be more present at work, whatever it is. So I think, like, giving you guys a little bit of context if you are new to this, or you've just not heard me speak about this kind of stuff before, is I have experience with this because of the fact that I have been in so many different jobs, in so many different industries, and I never really found what wasn't working for me. Couldn't figure it out. And then I realized that I was doing just this. I was going to work, I was coming home, I didn't have anything to work on, didn't have anything to move towards, I didn't feel like I was growing, and I was just stuck feeling overwhelmed and paralyzed and never having any understanding as to the fact that you can actually feel a little bit better with some small tweaks. I was feeling very like I was in that victim mentality, you know, everything was happening to me, you know, work's shit and this person's being unfair and I've had a stressful day and this person said something to me which pissed me off. I was allowing everything that was going on outside the world to affect me rather than realizing that I can do a hell of a lot of stuff that will affect me and then create that barrier to all the bullshit that goes on. Because I'm going to be honest with you, like, if your sleep is good, if you're eating well, if you're doing some kind of exercise, then when somebody's being a dick to you at work or a customer's being annoying or things are going wrong, it's much easier to deal with it. You know, you just feel like, oh, something's going wrong. I can appreciate that it's going wrong, but I'm not gonna let that, fuck my entire day up. So that's where this whole blending of the what goes on outside of work and what goes on inside of work really comes into play, because ultimately you are the constant. You've got to look after yourself in order for you to show up in your job, because we got to go to work because we got to pay bills. So if we can make it a little bit more efficient and have an easier time going to work, maybe even find a part of work that we enjoy, or move into something else that we enjoy more, fantastic. So I started to build structure, and I wasn't being too strict about it, but you do have to have something to lean on when things become a little bit overwhelming and stressy. We always fall back to the habits and the stuff that we've implemented over the long run. So I think just a couple of things, like structuring in, I'm going to go to the gym 2 days a week, on a Tuesday and on a Friday, or I'm going to walk for 15 minutes every day, no matter what. Even if it's 10 p.m. at night and it's raining outside, I'm going to go for a 15-minute walk, because I know that helps my head. It helps me feel calm. My emotional sort of state is better. Or I'm going to start on meal prep every week, one meal a day, so that when I'm at work, I know that I don't have to mess about going to the shop. I don't have to take money. I know that I've got food for that one specific day. Or another great example is I'm going to have an evening routine. So I'm going to have some wind down time before bed every night, because that's going to let me fall asleep better. I have a better night's sleep, so then I wake up with more energy. And then you can see how making these few little tweaks are just going to systemically make a very nice impact. And that's what I started to do. I started to go through one by one. I thought about what was the one that's most important. Let's do a small tweak on that. Then that gave me a little bit more energy, so I could then look at another one and make a small tweak on that. That gave me a little bit more time. So let's look at another one. And then over time, you just start and build a life which you feel very settled in, rather than you're having to react to. So I think that's the power in systems. When you first think about having a systems orientated life, it can seem like like a little bit fucking autistic, or a very, very specific and very strict. But actually, it's very freeing, because now I don't ever have to think about the things that I used to be stressed about all day at work. Like, oh, I've run out of fucking this and I need to go to the shop, but I haven't got time, and I wanted to go to the gym, but I've got to, I was stuck in traffic because I didn't plan it out. And nobody wants to live like that. It's very stressful. It's very, very stressful. You just end up with nothing left in the tank. And I think it's ultimately coming back to the point of, what's my future self going to thank me for? Like this morning, I woke up, I went to the shop, and it's my day off today, yeah? So I woke up, I went to the supermarket, I hydrated. So I actually woke up, did my morning hydration routine, did all my bathroom stuff, went to the shop, bought all the stuff that I need for tomorrow, because I'm doing my meal prep tomorrow for the full week. But I actually don't want to leave the house tomorrow, because I want a day inside for me. So I went to the shop today, I'm going to go to the gym today, I'm doing all my recording stuff today, so that tomorrow, my next day off, I can just chill. And I know that in the back of my head, that the sacrifices that I'm making today are going to benefit me tomorrow, but I can only do this because it's structured and organized. Yeah. So you see how it starts to piece together. So I think recognizing that something really small is something very important. And I think it's important to start with something small, so that it feels like you can do it. You don't want to start with this great big momentous task that's just going to stress you out and overwhelm you. So things like hydrating, a big glass of water in the morning with some real proper sea salt, not fucking table salt, is fantastic. That's really changed my energy levels. and my focus levels. So again, turning up to work switched on. Getting sunlight if I can, like actually being out in the sun is fantastic. Walking every day, so I have a notification in my phone to basically just be like, have you walked? So it's really common for me to get to the end of the day because I sit down at work all day. I'm sat down right now on my chair. I'll get to the end of my day and being like, oh, I've not gone for a walk. So I'll incorporate that into an evening sort of thing, and then rather than sit and watch TV for half an hour before I go to bed, I'll go for a walk, listen to some like chilling music, and then when I get back, I'll have my shower, go to bed, and my sleep is then improved. And eliminate one bullshit source in your life, whether you've got some like really negative co-worker that you can avoid. You know, stop watching bullshit on TV all the time. You know, a little bit of bad food here and there isn't bad, but if you're like demolishing thousands, and I'm talking from personal experience, if you're demolishing thousands of calories a night, then, you know, maybe one night a week, don't do that. You know, just start off with stuff that's really simple. And I think it's really important to understand that systems are super personal. So like the stuff that or the philosophy that I try and approach things from is not always give people stuff that's exact, but give you the ability to view how things can be done and what the potentials are, so that then you can use that lens to look at your own circumstance and think, oh, well, if you can do that with this area, maybe I can try it with that area, and make it very personal to you. So think about like, what are you struggling with? Like, what are the challenging areas, or what's one area that you just are really struggling with? You know, it might be sleep, it might be mental health, it might be physical health, it might be food, it could be you really, really don't like the way that you look physically, you know? And then just, again, start to think about what's one small thing every couple of days, or once a week, or every day that I can do to just move the needle slightly. Like, and another great way to sort of frame it is like, what would this look like if it was like 10% more enjoyable? So, as an example, say if you are really overwhelmed by doing housework, and you know that you kind of need to mop and you need to dust and you need to clean, but you kind of can't be arsed. It's like, right, well, let's look at when we've got the time, so we know that we've got the time. Okay, let's just create a structure, let's create a system. So Saturday at 2 p.m., 2 p.m. while 4 p.m., we've got a 2 hour block. Right, so I know that I can do it. So what's going to make it 10% more enjoyable? Well, maybe if you put headphones on and listened to your favourite couple of albums, or you listened to a podcast that you really enjoy, and then all of a sudden you found the time, so you don't have that excuse. You consciously know that it's going to be a little bit annoying, so you've got something to move the needle, and then you're much more likely to then do the thing, and then it sort of reinforces itself because you've got the cookie for doing the work. You know, you've done the difficult thing, and now you get to be in a nice clean house. Every time you walk in, you're reminded that you've done it, and you can take that positive stuff. So it's just sort of like breaking it down like that, you know. You know, if you really are, let's say, let's keep it structured towards work a little bit more. So let's say if you don't feel like you have enough time in the morning, all right, you wake up and you feel like everything's rush, 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 go, go, go. So my first thing would be is make sure you've got a good evening routine. But also, like, you know, can you have can you organize your bag the night before so you don't have to do it in the morning? Can you organize what you're wearing the night before so it's less decisions that you've got to make? You know, make sure that you don't get up and wake up and look at one of those for the first 20 minutes of your day, because it's just going to eat up time, and you then feel like, and again, without going into too much of a big conversation, if you sat flicking on social media in the morning, having to then go to work seems a lot less appealing because the dopamine system in your brain is being kicked off. Yeah, so just having an awareness of that kind of stuff. So you know, systems don't need to be perfect, but they need to be good enough to give you something to hold on to when things ultimately go sideways, and understanding that that's kind of what they're designed for. So I think over the next couple of episodes, we're going to get into a lot more practical stuff in terms of like what we can actually do in order to improve like our energy, ways that we can figure out ways to sort food out, to sort sleep out. We're going to dive into a lot of stuff on like emotional health, on stress, on overwhelm, and just generally how to stay strong when you've got like a super demanding job. And like what I wanted to do for this first video was also give you a really like good, deep, but very broad ranged insight as to the kind of topics that we're going to be covering, because I think a lot of people, you know, you can talk about being productive at work and, you know, mindset and having goals and all that kind of stuff. And I think that that's very, very important. But ultimately, if you're not in a good way, if you're not optimal, if you don't feel in control, if you don't feel regulated, if you don't feel balanced, then you can have the best goals in the world and you can read the most motivational stuff you want, but you just aren't going to enjoy the process. It's going to feel like an effort and a slog, and it's just not going to be a fun time. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. That's my angle. That's my philosophy. It's let's work our fucking arse off and build the career, or you know, do as many hours as you want to do for whatever goals you've got, but optimizing us to make that as easy as possible. So yeah, pick an area that feels messy, have a little think about what you can do to optimize a system, play around with ideas, experiment, don't try and get it perfect, and remember to start really nice and small, start gentle. You know, it's something new. The goal is to do something so that we create energy, we create a little bit of space so that we've got more capacity, rather than adding something in which feels like more work all the time. All right, peace.